Today's talk focuses on the news that Tesla has begun its China uh, manufacturing plant build. So that's the first thing we cover because in theory, Tesla doesn't have enough money to finish its US factory and plans. The second thing we covered today is an update on Autopilot 2 that I think is worthwhile based on the need to prevent any kind of injury to those who are users, owners of, of all Tesla products. I chose to change orientation because the difference between the sunlight and inside light will create all kinds of issues for my viewers. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. A couple of notes. One is that I can see when you guys are saying hello, etc., and I'll respond at the end. Most of our viewers have requested that we be delayed till then so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the conversation. One other note is that your like is really powerful in terms of influencing how this video ranks and therefore how many people get a chance to watch it. So if you like our content, we greatly appreciate your liking. We also have a Patreon link below, and that link helps us in the process of working towards improving our equipment, everything from camera to lighting, etc. The final, and so your like and subscribe and hitting the bell icon ensures you don't miss anything. We typically do our shows Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. This is actually a Friday, the 19th. I elected to do a show earlier than our Sunday because for several reasons. One reason is that most people that watch YouTube channels do it on the weekends, so a Friday show picks up more viewers on Saturday and Sunday. The other issue is that there may be some challenges related to how and when my shoot goes on Sunday. So by shooting early, we don't miss shows we've agreed to do. In fact, we're early. So you get to watch this on Friday, but let's call it a Sunday show nonetheless. So there's been this mystery sitting on the Tesla Chinese factory for the last, well, I guess it could be 2 years based on how long ago it was announced, but it particularly became acute over, let's say, the last 6 months. In September it was announced that, or excuse me, in November it was announced that Tesla was in negotiations to build a plant in Shanghai, and the question was, well, that doesn't kind of make sense for a whole long list of reasons, especially the cost. So if you look at Seeking Alpha today or yesterday's note, Tesla has actually gone to the step of now posting job listings for the new Shanghai Chinese plant. And I have to admit, in the back of my mind, I agreed with everyone else in saying that Tesla building another factory when they've barely got this one figured out is ridiculous. And I was just thinking it was a game, it was a ploy, this is never going to happen, blah, blah, blah. So now they're actually recruiting. And so what I thought was a game ploy has turned out to be actually quite valid. So the question is, and why I decided to shoot this today, is where and why are we in terms of this plant, and how is Tesla pulling this off? Especially because everybody knows that the company is strapped for cash right now, given commitments to everything else that they're doing. So, so this is a giant how and why China, and I believe we uniquely have the answer to that. And it's sort of through the back door. So one of my side projects is that I've been working on issues relative to development in Africa. I don't know if you guys have known it, but take time to Google the efforts of China within Africa. So they've been building roads, they've been building train lines, particularly in Eastern Africa. They have a number of initiatives that they've been involved with that are designed to help in African development, and the benefit they get is access to natural resources, and they get outlets to sell their products, and they get if you will, good investments based on the first two items. So one item that randomly comes to mind is there's a concept called Power Africa that was developed by the Obama administration to increase the power situation in Africa. It was suggested that when a place gets electricity, the life expectancy doubles for the population, and particularly the young population, because now you can refrigerate vaccines. So where I'm going with this is, for example, in Tanzania, they did a solar panel. I believe it serves, they have 150 employees. It serves 30,000 people with electricity. And, you know, it's a raging success, and it's an illustration of how and why Power Africa is working. The gentleman I spoke with that helped put that Tanzanian project together explained to me that he actually was working on a project in another African country. I can't remember which one. But in this case, he was asked to be a consultant, and the Chinese, through the Chinese Import Bank, were going to come in and do everything. So what he explained was the Chinese are amazing in terms of the capital they have available. They will give you money that's as cheap as 1%, but there are strings attached. Number one, all of the people that build the project have to be Chinese. Number two, everything that goes into the project in terms of technical, sort of whatever, has to be Chinese. And so this gentleman explained to me that the money is good, it works, it will come in. The nightmare is the Chinese quality is horrible. So as a result, you have all these countries that are building and will have commitments to China based on a finished product that in his mind is substandard, and he would have, his hands were tied. He would have much preferred to spread out where he was actually getting the components that they put together to build the system, rather than to being stuck exclusively with a Chinese solution to everything. So this brings up, so the question is, like, Greg, why is Tesla Fans Insight roaming in China with what the Chinese are doing with $50 billion a year in their African investment process? The answer is that, let's think this through. So America, I think, is a bit on the unwise side. And here's why. If you look at Tesla, okay, look at the number of people that are employed by the factory, from all the way from senior executives down to the low-level people. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla's job roles are up to 30,000 people globally by now. Well, guess what? All those people pay taxes. All those people contribute to the economic development of both California and the United States, et cetera, and wherever else they're operating. So when America does calculations, America just calculates the fact that we ain't putting no money in that company because y'all need to find your own financing. When it comes to places like Germany and China, they're like, oh, no, no, no. I just want to note to you that we're not interested in, we're interested in creating economic opportunity and jobs for our people. And we're willing to invent new rules on a regular basis to help facilitate this happening. So, so let's jump back to China. If in fact China is willing to put $50 billion a year to work in Africa, and the parameters of that is, you know, all the elements of the production, including the work, has to be done by Chinese, and they're offering it at 1% money, what do you think the Chinese are willing to do when something is being built in country and using all Chinese inputs when it comes to concrete, laborers, you know, name the list of what could go into a building or a factory? So as a result, the Tesla factory in China makes no sense at all from a Western perspective and analysis about what's going on. And so I bring this up because, you know, the bottom line is that the Chinese are in a position right now where Tesla is a bullseye for all of the issues they're trying to deal with. One, they want a 50% reduction in pollution. Tesla's a winner on that. Two, they want jobs and growth in fields that allow them to employ more of their people. And on the back end, they get tax dollars off of those people, et cetera. They easily exceed the amount of capital that was put in. Winner at Tesla. Number three, um, they get the opportunity to study carefully and look for an opportunity to leverage Tesla's technology that they can spy on to make them a player globally in this technology field. And this is a great one because China's goal, as they've stated, is to be at the leading edge of all technology developments that are significant heading into the future. And they understand this as everybody else does because the highest value is there in terms of compensation, et cetera. So bottom line is that Tesla's a huge winner for China if they're able to convince Tesla to build in China. So I was actually intrigued because one of the things I've been advocating for with Tesla for a while is on the list of what they're doing. Namely, they're talking about building factories or factories in which one side of the factory is the production of the batteries and the rest of the factory is a production area for the cars, or a combo factory. This thing is going to be huge, and the combination makes it a lot more efficient. As you'll recall in one of our earlier shows, we talked about the fact that Tesla not having, they should seriously consider building a second production facility next to or close by, um, you know, close by, et cetera, the Gigafactory, because it cuts down the supply chain to getting the cars built and, et cetera. So the fact that China's getting a combo factory, which we don't have in the United States, I think shows that Chinese money and planning works well. Another element of this to take a look at is the fact that one of the holdups of Tesla considering going to China is that until China has been negotiating this deal with China over the last year, there were strict rules regarding having to have a 50% owner in a Chinese partner for whatever you did technically in China. So a lot of companies have ended up with their technology being stolen by Chinese companies, et cetera. And so part of the negotiation was how this was going to be dealt with. Prior to the Trump administration making their move, that number was actually down to 25% sort of ownership stake that was not owned by Tesla. And with the Trump administration pressure, it's moved to the fact that foreign entities are allowed to now own 100%. And if you think about it, by Tesla building in China, if there were any tariff issues, those would be eliminated because you're a domestic producer that owns 100% of your plant. So in my mind, given all the concessions made by the Chinese, it's very clear that Tesla's not going in unless it's a winning situation, and some of the parameters I just gave you kind of illustrate it. There is some intellectual property risk, but it says nothing about when the finished sort of battery portion of things would be built, and so you could get an entire factory built for producing cars that allow you to ship pieces from the US and eventually get into building the batteries. But I'm hard pressed to see how Tesla would actually protect its intellectual property when it comes to the final stage of battery production, because they have open patents, and part of the way they're protecting themselves is the machinery. There's sort of key portions of the machinery and production of the batteries that Tesla's deliberately holding back from the marketplace and not patenting. And so, I just wanted to note all of this because bottom line, it kind of shows where things are going. The last China note that I wanted to make that I found interesting is that, as we've discussed in a previous Chinese focused show, it's been announced that Tesla is actually, or there is in every major city in China, which I believe there was minus 50 cities, there have been two brand new within the last year and a half startups in the electric car space. China's goal is by 2020, they want to have something in the range of 20% of their cars be electric and keep pushing towards a goal of 50 or 100% in the next 5 years. And so they've got these stringent efforts going on. So I found it fascinating to see that one of these in the business for 1 year entities have pulled a Nikola move, and they sent a note to Tesla welcoming them to the Chinese market. So I thought about this and I was like, what do you mean by you're welcoming us to the Chinese market? Um, Tesla has been in China for at least the last 5 years, has a lot of superchargers built out, has large sales of, the X and S in mainland China, but they have a heavy concentration of cars that are going into Hong Kong, and they have a lot of sort of in-building supercharger stations that are unique because they haven't been doing that in the United States or Europe, but they have been doing it in China because it's such a vertical city without a whole bunch of land to work with. So, um, what one last point on this whole thing is by Tesla electing to do things in China, it improves their leverage. So right now, there's a back and forth about whether or not the cars being sold in Hong Kong would either have a special tariff or not. And without a tariff, Hong Kong becomes one of the highest concentrations of Tesla buying entities. With a tariff slash duty tax on the car, it pretty much grinds production or sales to a halt. So with the Chinese now starting to put money into the new factory in Shanghai, Tesla now has the ability to start negotiations with them or maintain a quality experience across China because they have a leverage point of the fact that, oh, you guys are going to try to screw us to the back door, no problem. We'll shut down what we're doing. We'll lay off all the workers at the factory and wait you out because now all those resources are expended, et cetera. So I just think it improves Tesla's leverage point with the Chinese. This also finally brings up the whole issue of competing entities jumping into the EV business. And I'm just fascinated by the fact that there's anytime Chinese or others announce a new product, there's a misunderstanding between introducing new products and it's going to be great and quote unquote quality. So an example of that being that I'm sure Nissan has made the change, but until the current model, we know that they've been operating with an air-cooled rather than a liquid-cooled battery. So the question mark has been, wait a second, if at 3 years, the battery degradation, particularly after warranty ends, that's come from a lot of my viewers, is up in that 60% range. So a 100-mile vehicle is going down to max 40-mile of range after only 3 years of ownership. So just because people are saying we've got something new, it's gee-whiz, it's gee-bang, it has decent mileage, the whole cost of ownership, the infrastructure relative to fast charging, all these other things are playing in. Right now, I'd like to bounce into two quick areas. We're rolling out of our time. The first area I wanted to look at is AP2 or Autopilot 2. I wanted to share with everyone that, I have a good buddy of mine. I consider him a rabid Tesla guy. In fact, he's a partner of mine in terms of helping us determine what, putting the show together to begin with, and also a regular supporter. If it's an interesting situation because Autopilot 2 is showing one accident a week, and most of it is the vehicles hitting fixed objects while going at highway speeds. So I wanted to encourage y'all to the ideal optimal use of Autopilot 2 or any autopilot is really that bump it, touch and go traffic in the early morning or evening during the rush hour where you're not moving that fast and the autopilot is able to anticipate vehicles around you and even do lane changes if you want. What seems to be happening is that we get to high speed, those fixed objects, there seems to be a problem going on. And I chose to make a note on this because when I actually did a test drive, I try to do test drives periodically with the local Tesla stores, and I was fascinated because while using Autopilot 2 at relatively slow speed, I almost got in an accident, which again we covered earlier. My Tesla assistant driver was explaining that one area of challenge for the autopilot is if like we were changing lanes and they said that, look, with the rear camera, if there's a very high speed approaching vehicle from the rear, you could end up with the autopilot not necessarily handling it well. And so I thought that was interesting. I was like, but why does it matter? Well, guess what? We're seeing high-speed approach from the front, and there seem to be some issues there. The vehicle going towards the object rather than the object coming towards the vehicle. So I think due diligence is in order if you are driving, and you're going high speed. I'd say definitely keep your hands on the wheel, but I think, due caution is in line, to make sure you stay healthy and happy and a happy owner. The final note I wanted to make is I kind of got flamethrowed on my last show because I mentioned Walmart and the fact that, you're able to ship electricity large distances without a problem. Now, the person who put that in there articulated the fact that, likely Walmart's big enough that they actually don't have to deal with buying electricity from Tesla because they're going to be a big enough scale to sort of build their own facilities and produce their own electricity, given that the trucks are going to help them get the scale that they're using up higher. And so my strategy on that discussion is that I chose Walmart because they have the problem of distributed stores, they have the problem of distribution by trucks. And I have to agree with the assessment that they may or may not choose to use Tesla's electricity based on their scale, allowing them to participate in ways that other people can't. So my goal will be to sort of cover this more intensely in our next show, but I wanted to note that just because I chose Walmart doesn't mean I'm saying Walmart will be a buyer of electricity. They're going to buy the trucks, and then they're going to try to scale them up within the Walmart system. But you're right. There are reasons why Walmart is incentivized to not go there in terms of buying electricity from Tesla, even though they're currently a customer of Tesla's solar power arm, Solar City. And the CEO seemed proud of how that relationship is working and the impact of him buying electricity out of the Tesla solar panels on top of their buildings. At any rate, I wanted to note, I can see all of the comments that you guys have been sharing. Panasonic's decision to start working with other countries, other companies, in particular Toyota, is worrisome in the case of Tesla. I think that I just am fascinated because what I can't figure out is when and if, one, Tesla's going to actually go ahead and buy Panasonic, and two, why not buy Ford? If they're getting rid of cars, you could, get with Ford and eventually replace all those diesel, trucks and trucks of all types with electric. So that's another possibility that I'd like to throw out there that's entirely possible where we end up going. Any rate, I don't want to go beyond appropriate time here. Well, anyway, Jerry, hello, thanks. Curious Sand, thanks for taking time out. I want to say hello to my friends in London that I saw pop up as well. Steve also, wanted to say shout out to all of you for taking time out early in the morning to visit with us on Friday. Note, we said we'd be on Sunday, but we're on Friday. So we're 2 days early rather than 2 days late. So please note that to the record of our firm in terms of what our agreed on delivery of shows is. Finally, I just again wanted to reiterate, we could definitely use your help on Patreon if possible. $1 or $2 a month goes a long way as we, to support what we're trying to accomplish. So we'd appreciate it if you do so. Secondly, please like. Those likes help us improve how we're ranked as a video. And so it's important that you like if the conversation, you have found some value in it. The third issue is also hit the bell icon and subscribe. All of that definitely has an impact on the success and growth of the channel, and we'd appreciate your support in that fashion. So, tschüss, German, au revoir, French, farvel, my new learning word for Dutch, Lahitraot, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, Nof Respect Wak Woodman, in my native Jamaican tongue. Any rate, hey Steve and Jerry, thanks for all the comments you guys rolled through as we were going through the show today. Your input is always appreciated. I also am eager to see what you guys want to talk about. Again, I'm particularly shocked by the fact that we're doing three shows a week, and there's enough material out there for us to have quality things to say. And a big part of it comes from you guys having good questions of what we should cover and thoughts and ideas. Also, Glenn, please note, by covering the AP2 issues that I just shared, that also covers an additional software coverage for the week, which you've asked us to do. And we've done so once again. I really think AP2 has another year to go before it's ready to go, and we'll be rolling from there. Again, I hope you guys have a great day, and thanks once again for joining us. And we likely will not do our Sunday show. It may be a Monday at this point, but really appreciate the time. Hey, Jerry, thanks for your comments about Fisker and the solid state situation. You know, what I'm fascinated by is how the research might be completed at a certain point, but man, it takes time to build a factory. So in the case of the Tesla factory, it took 3 years to build the Gigafactory to where it's at in 2 years. I think it's entirely possible, so we'll see what happens with that. At any rate, thanks once again for joining us. This is Greg for Tesla